Hello and welcome to episode 88 of the Dragons Are Real podcast. My name is Pete Jones. So in today's episode I'm going to talk about the science fiction role-playing game Traveller, which was first published in 1977 by Games Designer Workshop by Mark Miller with help from Frank Chadwick and others. It took characters and they journeyed between various star systems, exploring and trading and basically getting into trouble. The original core rules were a box set of 3 little black books, and they were later compiled into a single volume. There was a host of supplemental booklets that were released, which detailed advanced character generation, capital ship design, robots, and so much more. Then, in 2008, Mongoose Publishing got the rights to Traveller, and they had a paid version, and they also released simultaneously an SRD version. In 2016, Mongoose Publishing did a second edition, but the second edition was not under the SRD and reverted back to full copyright. Well, fast forward to 2018 when Jason Kemp of Ardent Press wrote the Cepheus Engine. And the Cepheus Engine takes the Mongoose OGL and rewrites Traveller. It's available for free from Ardent Press, and there's also a paid version by Moontoad Publishing, which is £5 for a PDF and £10 for softcover, which has a few minor changes and fixes. The Cepheus Engine SRD is 208 pages, and it is a clone of the original Traveller using the SRD. So those of you who are not familiar how Traveller works, then I'm going to go through this today. Cepheus Engine and Traveller before it is a very simple 2d6 system, and basically you roll 2d6, you add or subtract any modifiers, and you require an 8 plus to succeed. There were some task difficulties that could modify this 8 by a -6 to +6. Character creation was very simple. There were 6 attributes: strength, dexterity, endurance, intelligence, educational and social, and an optional psionics. And basically you roll 2d6 for each attribute and work out its corresponding modifier, which would vary between -2 to +9. Then you choose a career, and you have to go through some hoops. You have to roll to qualify for that career, and if you fail you can either join the draft or you take the drifter career. And then you go through basic training. You roll to advance and you gain skills, and then you roll to survive. And this is where you famously die in character creation. So you go through this system, and basically you do a number of qualifications, you can change your career paths, and you have a number of terms, which helps increase your skills. There are 24 character paths in Cepheus Engine and 61 skills. And basically the whole game front loads your character XP. So by the time you finish your character creation, you have a fully fleshed out character with years of experience, different careers to draw upon, and it's a little story. And your character has a full history, and character creation in itself became a bit of a mini-game. Something that confuses people was they had a UPP, or Universal Persona Profile, for characters so they could condense a character down. And the character would be represented by some numbers and letters. It'd be something like 687B9C. People used to think, what the hell is this? But actually it was very simple. Those were your characteristics for your 6 main attributes. Up to 9 was denoted by the number 1 to 9, and then 10 was an A, 11 was a B, 12 was a C, and so on. So 687B9C is strength 6, dexterity 8, endurance 7, intelligence 11, education 9, and social 12. Combat also used the same unified mechanic. You roll 2d6 and you add either your gun or your melee skill, and your strength or dex modifier depending on whether you're using a ranged or melee weapon. The difficulty that you were aiming for was set by the weapon type and it's ranged. And if you hit, damage caused a number of d6 damage minus the target's armour. The damage was taken from your endurance stat, and from then on also your choice of either strength or dexterity. When one of your 6 attributes was 0, you were wounded, If 2 of them got to 0, you were unconscious, and if all 3 of those got to 0, your character was dead. Also in the Cepheus Engine, there was a host of other information to do with sci-fi travel. Also in the book was loads of other stuff. There was off-world travel, which covered fuel, speed, dangers, starship design. You could design anything from a small craft to a huge Death Star, private craft, military craft. There was a detailed starship combat sequence. There was trade and commerce. There was an absolute fantastic world building where you could build star systems, you could build worlds, and there were tables for rolling for atmospheres, temperatures, governments, the population of the planets, what minerals they had, what they traded in, and all sorts of stuff. That the whole thing was a complete, utter system all wrapped up together. And if you get one of the books where all the rules are contained, then for that one book, you can run absolutely anything. So that is the Cepheus Engine, and the Cepheus Engine has allowed third parties to write stuff for the original Traveller using the Cepheus Engine SRD. And others have now gotten onto this because the whole of the text in the SRD is free to use, and Omar Golan Joel of Stellar Gamma Publishing has really taken this to heart. He's written a number of variants based off the Cepheus Engine. The first one being Cepheus Light, and he's taken the Cepheus Engine and he's reduced it to 109 pages. It's £5 for the PDF, or there's a free editable version which you can also download from Drive-Thru. So he has halved the page count of the Cepheus Engine by simplification, and he's done this in a number of ways. For example, the target number set by the task difficulty is now set between 4 and 12. There's no modifiers. The GM sets the task difficulty. Character creation has been streamlined. He's reduced the careers from 24 down to 12. The skills have been halved from 62 down to 31. Any dice roll modifiers either take the skill or the character modifier, not both. He reduced the equipment list, reduced the starship rules, and simplified the combat. So if the original Cepheus Engine is a bit too heavy for you, there's Cepheus Light. But he's gone even further. There's even one lighter than that now, which is cunningly called Cepheus Faster Than Light. And this, he's reduced it to 60 pages, again, nearly halving its previous version. This version is free, and in the introduction, it actually encourages you to use Cepheus Light to fill any gaps. The careers have been dropped again from 12 down to 6. Equipment has been cut even further. He's dropped all the examples for combat, and then he's removed all the world building and starship design. So if you want that, you need to look at for Cepheus Light or Cepheus Engine. And in the starship section, there is a small example of ships. But I know what you're saying, Peter. He can't reduce it any further. Oh, yes, he has. He released Cepheus Quantum. So how small did he get? 30 pages? No. 15 pages? Oh, no. He got it down to 2 pages. That's right. He's got the Cepheus Engine down from the original 208 pages to just 2. But obviously, he's had to cut some corners. The task difficulty has been reduced between a number between 4 and 10. The attributes have been reduced to just endurance and lifeblood. And the way this works is that you roll 2 dice for your total points in endurance and 4 dice for your total points in lifeblood. He's reduced his skills down to 6, which are combat, knowledge, physical, social, space, and technical. There are 10 careers, and basically you when you pick one of these careers, it gives you a preset list of skills and their points, and you've got another optional couple of points that you can put into skills. So the whole mini game of character creation is gone and it's been very pared down. And there's some very basic equipment. Combat in Cepheus Quantum has obviously been simplified. There is no initiative, it is simultaneous action, and basically you're rolling 8+ to hit in melee or 10+ for range combat. And you subtract the target's combat modifier to your dice roll. The damage comes off endurance and then lifeblood. And if during the combat you only take damage from endurance, then this resets after a combat. So this is like a temporary constitution. And there's some very simple vehicle and starship combat rolls to boot. Cepheus Quantum is ideal if you want to run a quick one-shot, or you want to do a con game, keep it in your backpack and you've got it up and running. So why this review of Cepheus? Well, I recently picked up CEPHEUS Atom, which is another one of Omar's rules. This is a free PDF, or you can get the printed version for about, I think I paid about £3, something like that. And Atom is based on the 2-page quantum rules, but this is a science fiction post-apocalyptic game. And I know what you're going to ask me. You're going to ask me, how many pages is this? And Cepheus Atom is 49 pages. There are no careers, and basically you allocate skill points. And the skills have been slightly changed, and the 6 skills are combat, knowledge, physical, social, survival, and technical. And character creation is the same. You roll 2 dice for your endurance, 4 dice for your lifeblood, and you distribute 5 points amongst your 6 skills. And you start with 3 days of food and water, a backpack, canteen, water skin, a utility knife, and 100 trade units worth of items purchased from the equipment list. And you start with 20 rounds, arrows or bolts for any ranged weapon that do not have a blast characteristic. So this is a halfway house between quantum and faster than light. Being a post-apocalyptic setting, we have got rules for unusual weather, scavenging, foraging, and of course radiation and contamination. And basically there are 6 levels of, or 7 levels really, of contamination, from 0, which is no contamination, to 6 lethal. And the more radiation and contamination you get, then you can gain mutations, gain appendages, get psionics and special abilities. There are rules in here for mutants and mutations. There are some monster stats and robots. So we have got such creatures as giant centipedes, giant geckos, land sharks, vomit flies, cavemen, a good mix of creatures. And the stats for all the creatures are pared down to just 3 lines. And it reminds me very much of an OSR game where you've just got 1 or 2 lines for monster stats instead of 1 or 2 pages. So, for example, a giant centipede, the way these stats work is that you have the number of endurance and lifeblood, its movement, its armor and attack, its skills and special abilities or mutations. So just by looking at it, for example, a giant gecko has endurance 7 and lifeblood 15. It moves 10 meters, armor 2. It bites for melee damage of 2. Its combat skill is 2. Its physical is 2. And has gigantism and wall walking. So overall, for the price, I think Cepheus Atom is a nice little book. For a couple of quid, you can't go wrong. And great for pickup games. And as you may have noticed with all of these games, there is no XP system, because for the majority of these games, the XP has all been front-loaded. Now, when I bought Atom, I also bought Barbaric, which is another set of rules by Omar, and these are again based on the quantum rules and also the Swords of Cepheus, which is a fantasy setting for the 2d6 system. I'm going to cover this in a separate episode because I think this is a good rival to Barbarians of Lemuria, which is another 2d6 system that covers fantasy and barbarians. I think that would be good to compare those 2 systems, and I know Jason from the Nerds Variety RPG podcast liked the Barbarians of Lemuria, his favourite set, so I think I'm going to do a full comparison for that one. I will leave a link in the show notes today for where you can pick up the Traveller SRD, the Cepheus Engine SRD, and the different faster than light, and atom rules. That's all for this episode. If you want any more details, you know how to contact me. You can check out the website at petejones.neocities.org. The blog is at dragonsarealpodcast.tumblr.com. You can leave me a voicemail on the Anchor app, and you can email me by sending me a message or send me an audio file at dragonsarealpodcast@pm.me. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you all on the flip side.